What's the most common injury you see from not wearing the bike helmet?
You mean like injury on the body?
Yeah, like the most common.
The most common injury is a head injury.
What kind?
You know what a traumatic head injury is? A traumatic head injury is when something hits your head or your head hits something. So usually, I would say, that's a really good question. I would say concussion is probably up there, but concussion is a type of brain injury. So sometimes we see concussions, but sometimes we see actually much worse injuries from bike accidents.
So we talked about that a concussion is something that you don't typically see on imaging, like when we take a CT scan or an MRI of the brain. It's not something you see, but it's definitely still an injury that's occurred versus something that's more like a moderate TBI or severe TBI where you would see a bleed or you have a shearing effect or something like that.
And that's a really good point, because what happens in a concussion, you guys all have computers, right?
Yes.
What's the hardware of a computer? Like, what is that? That's like your keyboard, your actual, like your mouse, everything that makes a computer work. But your software is something you can't really see, but it's super important to run your computer. That's exactly what happens in a concussion. Is the head looks okay, everything looks okay, but the inner machine, the really important components, those are the ones that are damaged. And with a concussion, it's temporary. And so that's really important. It's not permanent. So you will get better from a concussion, but we certainly want to do everything we can do to prevent concussions.
What are some ways that kids get better from concussions?
Kids get better from resting. It's kind of like being sick. And it sounds kind of silly, but you have to rest in order to get better. And your body will kind of tell you when you can start to do more things. So when you're first injured and you have a lot of you know what concussion symptoms are? Do you guys? Mm-hmm. Tell me one of the concussion symptoms.
Nausea. Vomiting. Loss of consciousness.
That can be one. Most people don't lose consciousness when they have a concussion. You guys are really smart, though.
They did some research on some. What were you guys talking about to the other pediatrician? The tests that they do. Yeah. What was that called?
The SCAT-3.
Yeah, it's in mine.
Oh yeah.
So the SCAT-3 is it's like a sideline evaluation that like FIFA uses, NHL, NCAA, and it has parts of what's called the standardized assessment of concussion, and that's something that I do here when kids come in here with concussions. But those symptoms, if you have headache and dizziness, are probably the two most common things that happen after a concussion. If you have headache or any of those symptoms, you shouldn't be doing things that make your brain work, like playing video games, doing schoolwork.
We talked about it, just like spraining your ankle, you don't jump back up. So we talked about that.
Repeating yourself, right? That's a bad one, right?
Yeah.
How long does it take for somebody to get better?
That's a very good question, and there's not one time frame. Everyone is very different. On the average, it takes about 2 weeks to a month to get better. Some people get better much quicker, and some people it takes a little bit longer.
Especially when you do the things that you're not supposed to do. So if you don't rest your brain and you go right back to school and you're playing video games, those are the times where it probably takes longer.
What are some long-term physical effects of brain injury?
Well, there should not be any long-term effects from concussion. However, if you go back to school or physical activities before your concussion is healed, you have much higher risk of having another concussion. And if you have another concussion, it's not like just adding another concussion on top of it. It's like multiplying.
Yeah.
It's a what?
That's what we found in our research. It was like a mini concussion, so it's not like it just adds to symptoms.
Actually, and
Like
I don't like the word mini because it makes it sound like it's not important. People, this is very rare, but there's something called second impact syndrome. Did you guys come across that at all? It happens usually like in high school and college age kids, and we see it mostly in boys. It's very rare, but it happens if someone goes back to playing. Let's say some kid's playing football and he's still feeling some headaches, a little not 100%, and he goes back to play before he's healed. It can cause a deadly brain injury called second impact syndrome. So it's really important that you don't go back too soon.
What was your
Worst patient.
worst patient, sorry. What was your worst patient, like the head injury? What was the worst thing?
I mean, I think unfortunately we see our worst head injuries are the ones that don't survive.
Okay.
And that unfortunately can happen. And we've seen it with kids on bikes a lot, because you know why? A lot of times it's not just bikes falling down, it's cars hitting bikes.
we
And that's the
talked
really
about.
dangerous part.
And we talked about sometimes when that happens, kids then end up with an anoxic injury on top of it when you're not getting enough oxygen in your body, and it's just a really bad situation.
And do you agree with the statement that bike helmets are currently the most effective way to stay safe on a bike?
I would say yes, absolutely. And did you guys, my husband sent me something from, what, my kids go to school in Pinellas County, and he sent me a picture. Did you guys get this from Tony Dungy from the All Pro, about talking about how important it is for all bike riders should wear helmets? I don't know if you guys got that.
We
from
talked
All
about
Pro
that.
Day.
They had asked me, like, why do you think kids don't ride bikes? And I said parents need to be role models. Like,
So that, you know, that Florida, I'm sure Kristen already told you, Florida has a law. You have to wear a helmet until you're 16 years old. That is a law. However, why stop at 16, right? I wear a helmet when I ride my bike. My whole family does. And I'm getting everyone in my neighborhood to wear helmets too.
They may be able to help you with that, right, boys? There's some little flyers.
nice.
Awesome.
That's what we need.
Yeah, can you like hang some of these up? And
We
pass them
would
out?
love
definitely
to.
can.
Are these for us? Thank you so much.
If you guys want more too, we can
Oh,
get
these are
Absolutely,
terrific.
we'll take 'em to the
You
trauma
guys
clinic.
made this? This is awesome.
I know.
I'm really impressed.
And we have some stars here. Look.
I know, I see that. This is so cool. I love this.
Francisco, do you guys have more sports related questions?
Yes.